Hi y'all, I'm Chef Cindy Mojica. I am the instructor here at the Silver Fork program at the Center on Halstead. And welcome to another one of our advanced videos. So today we're going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to do a recipe that I have never done before, ever. Mostly because I want to show you guys that you can take the skills that you have, or skills that I have, or whatever, and apply them to new things and new recipes, new techniques. I'm constantly looking for new things to try. Not only just using the skills that I have, but also trying to learn new ones. So I have no idea how this is going to go. It could fail epically, and that's okay, because failure is only failure if I don't learn from it, right? So today I'm going to make a steak and kidney steamed pudding. Now, when you hear pudding, I know all of us think maybe Jell-O, chocolate. Well, in this case, an English-style pudding can kind of be anything. This is a steamed pudding in this case, and it's savory. So it's a dough made out of suet crust. We'll talk about suet crust and what that means. Filled with basically a steak and kidney stew. Then you wrap it in that pastry and you steam it for about 2 hours. This recipe takes a long time. There's a lot of little parts to it. I've already started some of it, and I'll walk you through it. But like I said, I've never made a steamed savory pudding before. It seems really weird. It also seems really cool. So I want to try and make it and see how it goes. Watch you, right? So again, remember, I'm doing this because I want to show you that, yes, you can take these skills and try something new, right? And learn something, and it's okay that, especially when you try a new recipe. Okay, I have no idea how these recipes go. When you try a new recipe, it's okay if things don't go perfectly right. Okay, it's okay. Just take that, learn from it, try again. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do today. You're going to come with me. Hopefully nothing explodes, and we'll have a good time. I want to talk a little bit about why we do, or how I choose new recipes, rather, to try. So sometimes it's an ingredient, something I've never worked with, maybe a spice, maybe a cut of meat. Sometimes I see a piece of equipment that I really want to try. It could be a multitude of things. A lot of times it's based on the technique. Something that I haven't done before. Again, in this case, like a steamed pudding, I've never done that. So let's try it, right? But whenever you choose something, whatever you choose, you see something new, again, a technique, a spice, a cut of meat, whatever it may be. What you want to do, and this is what I do, and this is what I think is the best, okay? Find a recipe that you want to use. Find multiples of that recipe. So I looked at least 10 different recipes for steak and kidney steamed pudding. Okay? I see what they have in common. I see what they have different. For this, not a whole lot of difference. Okay? It's pretty much the exact same things and everything, maybe slight differences in the amounts, but it's so small, I didn't worry about it too much. Okay? So then I picked a recipe that I liked. Okay? Sometimes I'll even take things from another recipe. For example, when I talk about these ingredients, I'll talk about what I took out, what I changed, what I added, okay? Because it all kind of falls into place. And again, the more you do it, the more you can sense, oh, I can sub this out, or oh, I can add that because this recipe had it, it's very similar, I'm just going to add. Okay? Look at multiple recipes. Okay? Internet is wonderful for that. See what they have in common, see what's different. Okay? Then, not only the ingredients, but also the techniques. Okay? Read through a recipe. Okay? Is it the same as the other one? Is it pretty much the same? Is it totally different? Okay? Then pick one that you feel like you want to try. That's it. Okay? But do research before you just jump in to do a recipe. Okay? It helps. Now, I'm not talking about like hours and hours of research. Okay? It just means take some time, look at like 3 recipes. Okay? Rules of 3, that's always a good way to go. Okay? So that's how I do it. Okay? Then once I do that, once I choose my recipe, once I make all my, choices, I follow that recipe to a T. Okay? I'll use some of my instincts as well. Okay? Well, I'll probably do it when we do it now. Okay? But the thing to know is just follow that recipe super, super tight. Okay? Try not to vary it from it. Okay? Because That way you will learn what works and what doesn't. So if you follow that recipe to a T and it worked great, great, you know that recipe works. If it doesn't, then you know where maybe you can change things, okay? So it's important, follow that recipe. You're gonna be seeing me look at my recipe, read my recipe over and over. Even though I've read this recipe like 10 million times at this point, I will look at it over and over and over again, okay? Because I wanna make sure I'm following as tightly as I can. And again, because I've never done this before, I'm gonna follow a recipe, I'm gonna follow directions as best I can. So whenever you're choosing something, just be open and follow the directions as best you can, okay? So let's get started. So I'm going to walk through our ingredients. So I've weighed all these, again, precisely according to the recipe. I'm going to talk in grams because that's what I worked with. Okay. So I've got 25 grams of beef drippings. So from our stock, a lot of times we get that fat on top. I just use that fat. This recipe also says you can use oil, but I have this beef fat, so why not? I have 675 grams of lean beef. Okay, just cut up into about inch pieces. Kidneys. I have 350 grams of beef kidney that I have cleaned, soaked. I'm going to insert a little video about how I did this right now. Then I've got 1 onion. Okay, the recipe calls for peeled and roughly chopped, which is my least favorite kind of cut, so I did a medium dice, okay? I did not spend all that time teaching you how to hold a knife to just roughly chop something. So, and I didn't spend all this time learning how to cut as well, to just roughly cut. I've got 2 carrots peeled, and it says to thickly cut, thickly slice. Well, I don't know what that really means, so I went with an oblique, okay? A good size, nothing huge, nothing small as well, all right? Still thickly and coarsely cut. I have got 25 grams of all-purpose flour. I have 300 ml of beef stock, nice, really good, reduced beef stock. Now, this is where I changed from the recipe, okay? I saw recipes that said use beer. I said recipes that said use red wine, but this is one thing that I know works for sure, is whiskey. All right, so instead of using 150 ml of red wine or beer, I'm using Irish whiskey, okay? I know this because A, first, it's an English pudding, so why not whiskey? And B, I know this whiskey has a lot of flavor. I don't like using beer in my braises because a lot of times it can come off very bitter. Wine is a little bit boring and it's a little bit acidic. All right, so I'm going with whiskey. This is the change that I made. I've got bay leaf. I have ½ an ounce of tomato puree. This is an addition from a different recipe that I liked. Okay, 1 ounce of mustard. All right, I like a little bit of punch of mustard. It's got a little bit of white wine. This is a Dijon mustard. Okay, so this works really well, I think. And then I've got a bit of chopped parsley and a little bit of chopped thyme. I'm actually going to add this at the very end before we steam, okay, but I just want you to know that it is in there. All right, so we're going to start by putting all these ingredients together, and we'll go from there. All right, here we go, guys. So recipe says preheat your oven to 350. Boom, done it. All right, then we're going to start, okay. We're going to brown our meat in our beef drippings. Okay, so I'm going to turn on my heat here. I probably want like a solid medium, medium high. Okay. While this is heating up, I'm going to take a little half hotel and I'm going to spread out my meat. You can see it here. And I'm just going to season it gently with a little bit of salt and pepper. Again, while that's heating up. This is nice dry meat. If it was a little bit damp, I might pat it dry, but it's nice and fresh. No purge coming off of it. A little fresh pepper. Okay, we always want to preheat our pan, as we know. Got some good heat going. I'm going to go in with my beef drippings. Yeah, it's a good sound. All right. Per usual, guys, if I measured it, if you weighed it out, whatever it is, make sure you scrape it all out. Okay, so that's popping, that's hot. I'm going to go in with our beef. It's not a ton of meat. I can get one nice even layer, so that's why I just dumped it all in there. All right. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out this kidney. Okay. I'm going to lay it out. I'm going to season it. Now this has got a little bit of wetness. I'm going to go grab a paper towel real quick. All right, the kidneys for sure, you want to see how that liquid is sitting there? I don't want any of that, okay? Because of the video you watched where I soaked them, got all that stuff, I don't want any of this extra like purge, blood, whatever you want to call it, okay? So I'm just going to lay it out. All right, that paper towel soaked most of it up, and I'm just going to pat it, all right? And I'm also going to season these. Just a little bit of salt. My beef is kind of quieted down, so I'm going to turn up the heat. Get going. A little bit of pepper. Great. As this is going to, I'm going to throw in my kidneys. So I haven't worked with kidneys in a really long time. That's another reason I really wanted to try this recipe. It's been a while since I've cleaned them. So I thought, heck, why not? All right, so now I'm going to just give this a turn. I just want to brown the meat. So what I mean by brown the meat is I don't want to see any red. Okay? I want to get some fond going, right? This is all stuff I kind of already know. A bit of water coming out of it. Again, I want to make sure that I'm getting this. Turn up the heat again. Why not? I'm not necessarily looking for a hard caramelization right now. I'm more just trying to get the meat going. All right. Build some flavor, build some fond. I've got a slotted spoon here for when that's ready to go. I'm going to take it back out and put it on my hotel pan that I had over here. All right. So it says after this, meat is browned, okay, and then we're going to add our onion, carrot. I assume to deglaze a little bit with that way. Then we're going to add our flour. Get that cooked. And then we'll deglaze with everything and add the meat back in. All right. It's a little bit stinky. Kidneys are a little bit stinky, but man, do they taste good. They're good for you too. Lots of iron. All right. They're stinky to work with. NBD. We're getting close. We're getting close. There's a little bit of pink left. That's okay. And I did miss on my recipe. It did say to use a slightly high heat. So I cranked it up. Again, I'm not worried because I read the recipe and it says we're going to braise everything. So it's more about just getting that brownishy color, I guess. All right, I don't see any more pink, or at least if I do, it's a very small amount of pink. I'm going to go ahead and use our slotted spoon. Leave all that liquid behind. Again, I know it's going to cook again, so I'm not worried if I see, especially the kidneys, they tend to take a while to really release all that blood and or pink. It is stinky. All right. So there's my meat. I'm just going to let it hang out. All right. I like this wooden spoon, paddle kind of thing, so it helps me scrape the bottom. Right, so just making sure that's all good to go. Now I'm going to throw in my onion, just right in there. I'm going to throw in my carrot. Let that go. So let's move that, add onion, stir that. Okay, I'm going to let this heat up a little bit, pick up some of that fond that I got building up on the bottom there. get that going. So my recipe doesn't tell me how long to add this for. I'm going to go till it probably like releases a little bit of liquid, maybe a little bit of translucent onion. Let's hope for the best, right? And I think I'm going to also just sprinkle a little bit of salt. Again, I know it's going to braise, so I don't want to season it too hard, but I think a little bit of salt is going to be okay. A little bit of pepper as well. All right, so I got a little bit of translucence happening. I'm gonna go a little bit longer. That salt is not only to season, but also to break down some of the veg and help the onion kind of break down a little bit as well. Again, the pictures I've seen of this are pretty gray, brown in the middle, so I'm not expecting a whole lot of variety of color. It's not, I shouldn't say gray, it's not gray. It's just a very brown dish with occasionally some orange from the onion. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and add my flour. So this is going to help thicken everything. We're also going to get a little color on it. It'll also help build a little bit more of that fond on the bottom. Right. So just want to toast that off a little bit. I'm going to add my tomato paste at this point too, so it can kind of cook some of that kind of tinny flavor that it sometimes has. All right. Now I'm going to deglaze with my whiskey. All right, very carefully. All right, there's definitely some steam. I'm going to use my wooden paddle here to kind of get some of that up. Some of that flour, some of that fond. Okay, be careful whenever you add alcohol. Okay, not only especially when you're working with something like whiskey or something that's got a high proof, right? Not only the steam, but you also don't want to catch on fire, right? So be very careful. That whiskey smells good, right? The reason, again, I use whiskey, it's got a little bit more spice, it's got a little bit more flavor overall. All right? So that's definitely thickened up. Now I'm going to add my stock. All right. Again, I'm going to try and get some of that fond off the bottom. All right. And again, this is going to thicken slightly with that flour addition. Trying to get all the stuff that's on the sides. That's all flavor, right? Yeah. I got plenty of stock. I'm going to add my bay leaf. And I'm going to add my mustard. Yeah. Nice. All right, so that's come to, got a good simmer happening there. So now I'm going to throw my meat back in, along with any juices. All that right back in there. I'm going to use my metal spoon again just to help scrape some of this stuff off the side. anything that might be stuck there. All right. My recipe calls for me to bring it up to a simmer and then turn it off. So all that's mixed in there pretty well. Everything's coated. We got a simmer. I don't know if you can see that. Definitely got a simmer, bubbly going. All right, so now I'm going to turn it off. And then it says to cover it and put it in the oven for an hour. All right, so I've got a lid here, but to help a little bit extra pressure, I'm going to put a piece of foil on top of it. All right, and put my lid, and that helps seal everything just a little bit more. So I'm just going to push this down. All right, and I'm going to throw this in the oven for an hour, and we'll take a look at it then. Okay, through the movie magic, it's been an hour. So now we're going to check on this. I have not looked at it. We're going to look at it together. That's there. Okay, straight from the oven, 1 hour. Ooh, all right. Looks like stew. Wow. All right, with that said, recipe says to taste, adjust the seasoning, then cool down. So I'm going to take, yeah, this looks nice. Got some good gravy action happening. That's nice. Just kind of savory, umami. I don't think it actually needs more salt. I think I'm okay. I'm going to double dip, which you should never do, but this is for me. I'm going to eat this thing, so I'm going to allow it. No, yeah, I think salt's good. I think pepper's good. It's not strong on tomato. It's not strong on mustard. It's just kind of beefy and delicious. All right, so I've got a half hotel here. So in order to cool this down a little bit faster, I'm going to take it out of the original vessel, lay it out flat. Right, that's the best way to cool things quickly. Lay it out flat. Get it out of the hot container, lay it out, let it steam, put it in the fridge. Could be about a half an hour. It's not that much stuff, but I do want it to be fully cooled. So I'm going to take it out, let it stop steaming, put it in the fridge. And then about, when I think I've got about a half an hour, basically, I will start making my dough. All right, so let's just pour this in here. And I worked hard for this. All right, so I'm going to make sure I scrape all this stuff up. All right, yeah, that came out pretty nice. Looks like I got most of the fond. Cool. I'm leaving the bay leaf in while it cools, but I will take it out before I fill my pudding. So I'm just going to kind of move it so I can see it. Yeah, not bad. Not too shabby so far. All right. All right, so while my filling is cooling, it's almost ready. I'm going to make the crust. So in this, we've got 280 grams of self-rising flour. This is different than AP or anything like that. Pastry, bread, whatever. The difference is it has some rising agent in it. This, I believe, has a little bit of baking powder, baking soda maybe. All right, so if something calls for self-rising, make sure you actually get self-rising. Okay, so this is 280 grams. I'm going to go right into my bowl. This has a half a teaspoon of baking powder. So right in there. So even though it has rising agent, apparently it still needs more rising. Then it says a pinch of salt, so I'm just going to do a pinch like that. Kosher salt right in there. And because it doesn't say it on the recipe, but okay, all of this is reading like a pie dough or just a dough of any kind. Okay, so I always want to whisk my dry together, especially when I'm dealing with rising agent like baking powder or baking soda. I want to make sure I don't get any weird pockets. Again, it doesn't say it in the recipe, but I know from experience that you should do that. Okay, so it says to also use 140 grams of beef suet. Okay, so suet, I talked about earlier. It's actually a type of fat around the organs, as opposed to, the fat that we see on meat, like when we did our New York strip and things like that, you have that layer of fat. This is around the organs. So it's a different kind of fat. It melts differently. So what it said to do was to chop it up. And I'll put up a picture of how I bought the beef suet. It's whole. It's this big piece of fat. So instead of chopping it up, because I noticed a lot of membrane on it, I actually got it very cold, put it in the freezer for a few minutes, and then I just grated it. And then any little pieces that kind of showed up that didn't want to break down, then I chopped those. Right? Because I noticed there was all that membrane, I didn't necessarily want to chop it, miss something, and then there's a weird chewy part in the dough. That sounds awful, right? So, and I've kept this very cold, just like I would if I was doing butter or lard, right? Like a pie dough like we've done before. And I can feel it, like just that little bit melting on my hand very quickly. So that's why I want to keep it nice and cold. But that's beef suet. It's a little hard to find. I found it here in Chicago, not too hard, okay? But it's a specialty item for sure. The other thing that it calls for is ice water. It says 2 to 3 tablespoons. Of course, we're going to see, how we're looking, basically. So it says to make the pastry. Place the flour, baking soda, and salt into a bowl. Add the suet and rub it into the flour, and then add enough cold water to form a stiff, slightly sticky dough. And then we leave it for 30 minutes. All right. So I'm going to throw in my beef suet. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing like I would do with butter. I'm going to fluff it. Get it all coated. Now I'm just going to rub it in. Like it says rub into the flour. So just like we would with butter or lard, right? We're going to break up these pieces as much as we can and we're going to make flaky pastry, I guess. Though it's not going to be baked, so I don't know. So strange to me. Again, this is grated, so it's pretty small. So it shouldn't be too much trouble. Everything is very cold, though. And I'm not trying to rush it, but I am finding those chunks and kind of pressing them in my fingers like that. And that's whenever a recipe says to rub in the dough, like rub in the flour, lard, whatever, this is what they're talking about. It's literally, you're just taking your fingertips and you're kind of rubbing it in and creating those flat pieces, right, that are eventually create your flakes. Right, I also don't want to necessarily overwork this by any means. See, like this piece I miss. See how this is? Can't separate it. I don't want that in my dough. And again, because this is an English recipe, I think it's easier to get suet over there. And suet comes a little bit differently. It comes already kind of clean, no membranes. You can get it in kind of almost these little like pellets. So I don't think most people have to do as much work as maybe I had to. In England, that is. All right. So it all feels pretty small right now. Here, definitely rub that in. Just the temperature in my hands is kind of breaking down that fat just enough. I'm just making sure, again, I don't come across pieces like that. Just pulling that out if I missed them. Again, that stuff that's just not going to break down is not going to taste, or at least feel very good in your mouth. I don't know about you, but I don't want to pick my teeth after eating pastry. All right. Yeah, it feels pretty good to me. Feels like if I was making a pie dough, that would be about the size I would want everything. Doesn't say how much to rub it in. But again, I'm kind of going off of, all right, if I'm making pie dough, pastry dough. Yeah, found another piece. All right. Now enough cold water. So it says 2 to 3, but it, might be more, might be less. I'm definitely going to say it probably needs at least 1. So I'm going to sprinkle it on. Again, it just says to add enough, but because again, it feels like a pie dough of some kind. I'm going to start with 2, and I'm going to fluff. Oh, it definitely needs more than that. I'm actually going to go ahead and do 3 more. Get that going. Definitely needs way more than that. So I'm conferring with my recipe, and it really says 2 to 3 tablespoons, and that just does not seem like enough. That's not going to make a dough at all. See, it's not even holding together. All right, we're just going to keep adding, I guess. Right now, we are definitely not a dough. All right, so again, even though I'm following the recipe, like, I know that doesn't look like a dough. So even though it only says 2 to 3 tablespoons, that seems bananas. So especially if I'm looking for a stiff, slightly sticky dough. All right, and I'm testing just by crushing it in my hand. It's not quite staying together. Definitely need more. It's definitely looking more dough-y, but it's still quite dry and crumbly in spots. Getting there. I'm going to kind of knead it a little bit, I think. Get some more of that. It's hard when some of these recipes are just a little bit vague, but again, that's when you kind of have to rely on what you know. Getting there. I think maybe 2 more. Let's try 2 more and see. You just have to rely on what you know, right? Hope for the best. Follow the recipe as best you can. That's why it's helpful to look at more than one recipe, because sometimes there'll be better indicators, right? We talk about indicators a lot. What do we look for? All right. All right, that feels, I think it's coming together now. Let's see. Yeah. All right, should be able to pick up all these pieces. That is a piece of ice that snuck in. I'm going to pull that out. Just going to give it a couple kneads to see where it's at. See if it's stiff enough, if it's sticky enough. I feel like that feels slightly sticky. It's got some good stiffness to it. I'm just going to clean up some of this stuff around the edge of the bowl here. Yeah. I don't know. Isn't that sticky enough now? I feel like maybe like a half tablespoon will make me feel better. Yeah, there we go. Just needed a little touch more water just for that. Again, because that indicator was slightly sticky. Right? So it was stiff enough, but it didn't have quite a tackiness to it. All right. So there's our dough. All right, so now it says to leave it for 30 minutes and then roll it out. So I'm going to throw a little plastic on top just so it makes me feel better. I don't like the idea of just letting it hang out all willy-nilly, especially if it doesn't say to refrigerate. So I'm going to clean some of this up and then I'll roll out the dough. Okay, so we got about a minute left of this resting dough. And I just read the recipe again, and it says to butter the basin. Now this is a basin. It's made out of plastic, okay, but it is a special type of food-safe plastic, specifically for steaming. It can go in the dishwasher. All right, so if you try to use this recipe or try to make one of your own, make sure you get the right container. Okay, they make them out of metal too. They're a little bit difficult to find. I got it online. This is a 2-pint size one, and it comes with a lid. However, I'm not going to use the lid because all the recipes I looked at said to build the lid a certain way, which I'll show you. So I'm going to do that instead. So I'm going to butter this basin. I've got some butter. It's been sitting out. It's just warm enough that it's smooshy. I'm just going to leave it in this plastic and just rub it all over here. And I assume it's just so it comes out. I'm going to go all the way to the top, make sure I grease this real good. Even though there's a ton of fat in this dough, I assume it just makes it a little bit easier to get out if it is greased. All right, pretty good. All over, pretty even. Oh, there's a little corner there I can get a little bit better. There we go. All right. This aside, put this aside. Okay, so now, say it's about a minute, I say. It says to divide the pastry into 2/3 and 1/3 part. I'm going to be a nerd about it. I got my scale. All right, so I'm just going to grab this dough and weigh it out. So it's on grams. I'll just use grams. Together it is 588. I'm going to pull out the calculator to do some math. So 588 divided by 3, 196. So 196 I need for my 1/3. $196. There we go. So here's my 2/3, here's my 1/3. So this is going to be the base to put into the basin, and this is going to be the lid part. All right, so we're going to get rid of that, move that over. Now it doesn't say to put any flour down. I assume I don't want any extra. It does say to roll it out to about 2 centimeters, which is roughly more or less 1/4 of an inch. Okay. Now I know this dough is sticky. It asks for it to be sticky, so I'm going to use a bench scraper or have it at least handy in case it gets stuck to the counter. And I've got my rolling pin. All right, so I'm going to try and make this as round as possible. I'm actually going to maybe put it into a disc shape, kind of like when we do our pie dough as well. All right, so that way I have a fighting chance of getting this relatively round. So it says 1/4 of an inch, and it's going to hang over the basin about 1/2 inch. And this is nice and soft dough, so I don't need to put too much pressure on it, but I'm going to do the same thing I always do, right? Because I'm going to kind of keep turning this dough. Barely putting any pressure on this. And I'm just giving it a 1/4 turn so it stays relatively round. I'm going to flip it again so I don't hopefully get it stuck. Make it as round as possible. Again, guys, when you roll out doughs, remember, try not to just roll off the edge because that's how you get weird tapers. All right, I'm going from the middle out. All right, so it's doing a pretty good job not sticking, which is great. Now that it's getting a little bit bigger, I'm just going to move my rolling pin around as opposed to moving the dough. It might sound like a lot of pressure and what have you. I'm really not putting. Okay, remember this rolling pin's really heavy, so I can feel it sticking a little bit. I'm gonna release it. I'm gonna flip it again. It's gotten a little wonky on me, but that's okay. I think I can still make it work. And I know I don't want to try and stretch it because if it gets any holes in it, that means the filling will leak out of it while it's heating up and cooking. I most definitely do not want that. So at this point, I'm just trying to get it. I think that's going to be pretty close. Again, none of the recipes said how big, even though they all told me the size of the basin. Just kind of roughly 1/4 of an inch thick. Which I think that's about right. All right. This also says I can put a little flour on my hands to lift this up and put it into my basin. So I'm going to do that just to be safe. Just a little bit of, in this case, just a little bit of AP since I'm not really adding it to my recipe. I'm going to grab the bench scraper to make sure it's not stuck, which it is stuck a little bit. Oh, and I tore my pastry over here. Oh no! That's the edge, so hopefully. All right, so I'm going to fold it, bring my basin closer to me. I'm going to put that in here. It's a little short. But we'll see. We'll see. Could be fine, I don't know. Nope, definitely short. Okay. Let's keep going then. All right, it'll help me fix those cracks. I might steal some of this, even though it said 1/3. This is supposed to just be thick enough or enough to cover the top. So it might just be that. I might steal a little bit of extra. Otherwise, I don't feel like I have quite enough dough, honestly. And I don't know that I want to go terribly thinner, but I guess we'll have to. It was definitely not enough. Ah! It's alright, I can patch it. steal a little bit from this edge and put it right in this corner. I'm just going to run my hand and see where it's a little bit fatter. Edge right here. All right, let's try again. So a little bit of flour. I'm just going to gently release it. Fold this up again. Turn my basin over. Ah! Poke. This is harder than it looks. They make it seem so easy on Great British Bake Off. Oh no! Ah! Disaster! Alright, I'm going to make it work, guys. I'm going to make it happen. I didn't work this long just to lose my dough now. Alright, alright, alright. It's a little bit folded in here. I'm just trying to smooth it out. It's a very weird shape to try and get dough into. Alright, so now I'm going to patch it. I don't know if patching actually works for this dough, but that's what we're going to do. Alright, okay. It's falling apart a little bit, but it's okay. I'm mostly telling myself, not you guys, just so we're clear. So I see a hole right here. Again, I just want to make sure I patch it. And then if there's anything that's got a little too much hangover, I might take that and put a little more in the bottom. Because I only needed about a ½ inch, it said. So I'm just going to fortify the bottom a little bit. The rest of this is pretty good. That's got a little extra, that's fine. Alright, this is definitely some patchwork stuff, guys. This is definitely a lot extra there. I'm going to grab my scissors and just trim some of this off. Alright, okay, alright. It's a little wiggly. I'm going to make it work. Gosh darn it. Again, I didn't work this hard to lose it now. Basically, I'm just looking for any kind of weak spots. Gosh, it's already quite heavy. So I'm going to hold it up to the light and see if there are any spots that I can see a little too much light through. And that's a good indication that it probably is a little too thin there. There's a little bit of fat that I can see through right there. All right, there we go. I'm going to go with that. All right. Whew. Stressful. All right, with that said, add your meat mixture. I've got my meat mixture right here. Even cold, it smells pretty delicious right now. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit because it's quite firm. And then I'm going to fill the basin. So I really want it to fill. This looks like too much filling for the size of basin I have, but the other thing that the recipe says is to leave about a ½ inch from the top, so I'm not filling this up tippy top. That's how I know there's probably too much filling in here, but that's okay. It is a dense mixture, so I am going to pat it down to make sure it really is in there. And leftover filling is not the end of the world by any means, because I can still eat it. Alright, I'm gonna try to see approximately where I want to stop filling. I think I've got maybe one good spoonful left that I can really put in here. So there's a little ridge that I'm kind of feeling with my finger and kind of guesstimating. Where I think I can put like 2 more pieces of meat in there. I was not joking. Literally 2 more pieces. Alright, that feels about where I want it to be. Okay, I want to note that there's a lot of filling left. Alright, and that was all weighed out perfectly according to the recipe, so good to make a note. Alright, so I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to use this third here-ish, a little less than a third since I stole some. And it says to roll it out. As big as that, basically. So try and make this as round as possible. You know what? I have this parchment that I cut out, because I'm going to put that on top so I know exactly how big it should be. Well, a little bit less than that because this is the very wide opening, so a little bit more, and I think we're there. I think that's it. Ta-da! Alright, well at least that one worked out. Okay. Then it says to take a little bit of water to help seal all this up. So I've still got quite a bit of dough here. So I want to cut that off. So that bottom isn't super duper thick. Okay, cool. I'm happy with that. I have a little bit of scrap. That's okay. I'll leave that alone. Just grabbing some water. Forgot to set that up for myself. Cold water, the recipe calls for. So I'm just taking some cold water. I'm just going to use my fingers because that's what it says I can do. And just rub it. Alright. So that the bottom gets sealed. Alright, so we're going to fold this over. It says you can even do like a fancy crimp if you want. I'm not sure how I would do that. Alright. Oh yeah, that's way too much dough. But I'm going to... Oh, see there's even... I already caught a little bit trying to sneak out there, so I'm definitely going to go around and pinch this pretty well. I know this is actually going to expand even more, so this is where I was trying to aim for. But I guess we'll see what happens. That's a lot of dough. Oh well. Okay, so then it says to meat mixture in there, yeah. Wet the overhang, lay. Okay, hold that. Cover the basement with 2 circles of grease-proof paper. Boom. Okay, so I got 2 here. This is just parchment. I took the edge here, traced it, folded parchment over, cut it, got 2 circles. So there's 2 right there. All right, and then it says to cover foil. Let me make sure that I am doing that correctly. Blup, 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 blup. Roll out the lid, stick it on there. Yep, grease-free paper and foil. So I don't know that I want this to fold it over, so I'm just gonna kind of get it close to the size so there's not extra. It's definitely covered, so there's that. And then it says to tie this down. Again, mine came with a lid. All the ones I saw for this, though, said to use parchment and tie with a lid and with string. So you're going to watch me struggle bus, putting some string around and creating a little handle. Thankfully, this one has a bit of a lip, so hopefully I can get so much struggling. It's all right. Remember, again, it's a new recipe. If you struggle, just remember you've never done it before, so all right. Yay! Okay, that wasn't so bad. I might put one more go. Could almost go around twice. Okay. So why don't I do... I am trying to figure out, maybe I can use the little extra to make the handle with. We'll see. Try and be clever about this. All right. Oh, there's just enough. Nice. Not planned, guys. I'm just super smart. i.e. super lucky. Alright, so I'm just gonna do that. Make this secure so that when I do go pull this out, yay, struggle. Here we go. Just trying to make it secure so when I do go pull this out, it doesn't all fall apart. There we go. Yay! All right. Whew, that guy's heavy. All right, I'm going to use my scissors here to trim away some of this foil, just for aesthetics purposes. Nothing, not because it says to or anything. I just want to be able to see stuff, I guess. I don't know. There we go. All right, again. Oh, wait a minute. See, that's already pulling funny there. All right, well, we're going to hope for the best. That's why it's important to test it now rather than later. I'm gonna go for it. That may be a terrible idea. I'm gonna go for it. All right, so now we're gonna put it into the steamer. I'm gonna show you how I set up my steamer. All right, my lovelies. So here it is. I've got a big old pot with a lid with rapidly boiling water, which is what the recipe calls for. Now, there's a few things to think about here. It says to set up a steamer situation. I don't really have a steam basket or anything like that. Okay, a lot of recipes say to just throw a plate at the bottom, put lots of water in, or just throw it straight into water. It all seems crazy. Now, I couldn't find a little rack or anything to fit in here. You'll notice I turned off the water. That's for safety reasons. Okay. What I do have is this. Now, it doesn't look like much, but it's actually a collapsible metal pour-over coffee filter. That's pretty cool, right? But I can also play with it and make a little stand. So I thought, this will be great. So I turned off the water, mostly so I could drop this in and place it where I want it to be without the water bubbling around, right? I already know it's hot. It's not that big of a deal. I'm also going to put my pudding in there, right where I want it to be. All right, so we're going to hope for the best on this. Okay. And then I'm going to throw my lid back on, and I'm going to throw my water back on. All right. With the lid, it's definitely going to keep that moving and shaking, all right? So it says, I'm going to move it to my face now so you guys can see me. It says to do it for 2 hours. 2 hours of steaming. Oh my God. All right. Mostly it just says to check to make sure you don't run out of water while things are boiling, going. Some recipes say don't open the lid at all because that'll mess up the heat and pressure. I've got a fair amount of water in there. I will probably check it in about an hour just to make sure. Right? I'll keep my ear out. I'll listen to it. In the meantime, I'm going to clean. Maybe have a snack. But yeah, we're just going to let it sit for 2 hours and then we'll do the big unveiling. All right? Let's see what happens. Hopefully it won't explode. It's time. All right. So the only thing I did in those 2 hours was at 1 hour, I opened this up to see if it had enough water. It definitely did. Kept it closed till then. So no idea what's going to happen. Again, let's hope it didn't explode or anything. By the way, I keep saying explode. That's a very real thing that could happen apparently. So that's why I'm worried about it. All right, so I'm going to turn off the heat. I'm going to point the camera right there. Open this guy up. Ooh, it's very puffy. It's very puffy. But thankfully I have this little handle and you can kind of see the foil right there. It's very firm. So I'm going to grab it with my towel. And there it is. Woo! Sorry. Let's see. All right. I'm going to grab a knife to open that up with. So all the recipe says is to just take all this off and put it on a plate. So take that off. Look at that. And the paper slid a little bit, but wow. Oh, that feels like dry bread. Oh my goodness. I'm very excited. Okay, let's put this on a plate. All right, guys. Moment of truth. All right, so like I said, it feels dry. Feels like bread. So I'm just going to take this. I got my plate here. And I'm going to flip it. Oh! Look at it! All right, I got a couple cracks. It's not too bad. Oh, it's already leaking. It's already leaking right there. Oh my goodness. Ah! So it's busting a little bit. So it's not terrible. I will say that one thing I totally forgot was that I meant to put my parsley and my thyme in my filling before I baked it off, but I didn't worry about it because when I crack this guy open, I can sprinkle a little bit of this on top, and the reason I was waiting to put this in was because I wanted kind of that fresher flavor. All right, so I'm going to grab a fork, spoon, something. And this is meant to be a family size thing. This is at least 4 portions. So it's busting a little bit. Here, I'll move closer to the camera. So you see how it cracked a little bit here, cracked a little bit there. Those are probably where my creases were. A little crack there. Again, I'm not worried about it because I'm going to go right into it right now. So let's, oh, there we go, there we go. This guy closer, but it came right out and it's holding together for the most part, so that's pretty exciting. All right, so I'm just gonna bust into it. Oh my goodness. Look at that. That looks awesome. I have no idea if it's right or not since I've never had one or made one, but it looks cool. I'm gonna taste now. All right, definitely got some gravy. Come over here. That's delicious. That crust is so, like, both fluffy and tender and flaky, and like a little bit doughy. It's kind of like a really good pot pie, but not crispy or flaky. I don't know how to describe it, but it's really good. I really like it. So I can do a little bit of parsley on there. Grab a piece of that meat. That's hot. That's hot, really tasty. Success! Kind of, mostly. Yay! Well, okay guys, that concludes the trying out a new recipe. I think it went really well. I'm pretty happy with it. I definitely learned some things. That dough is super interesting, but getting those smooth sides is really helpful to keep it from leaking or cracking later on. I'm staring at it over there, by the way. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, it was definitely a learning experience, but hopefully you guys got to see that you can take some of the skills you already know or some of the indicators that you're already aware of and still use it towards trying something out of your comfort zone. And that's what I want you guys to do. If you guys try new recipes, let me know. I will be happy to give you feedback, answer any questions, but go out there, try new things, or just keep working on the skills that you have. Get them really honed in so when you do try new things, it'll all make a lot more sense, all right? But I'm gonna keep trying new things. I'm gonna take some pictures for Instagram of my English pudding that I'm very excited and proud of, and definitely eat that for dinner tonight, all right? So if you have any questions, want any help with anything, you know how to reach me. I will put my email address at the end, but happy cooking to everybody out there. See you later.